A luxury apartment sleeps like a hushed museum. Floor-to-ceiling windows frame a city of lights. Soft rugs, a piano with a single ivory key chipped, a portrait of a man the house seldom knows as a son more than a CEO. At the center, a wide bed with rumpled silk sheets. A small lamp spills amber light across a face that looks composed even in apparent slumber. Julian walks among his possessions as if cataloging them aloud. He speaks softly, not to anyone in particular, more to a memory. Julian, she always did the corners first. Clean edges, perfect lines. People mind the surfaces and forget the seams. He eases onto a chair near the bed, watches the quiet rise and fall of someone who shares his home, but not his world. He reaches for the remote, then lets it sit. He breathes in, slow and deliberate. He slides an idea along the surface of his mind like a coin. He will test her. He will see what gratitude looks like when it is neither paid nor patronized. He lies down on the bed and closes his eyes, making himself into an anonymous weight. He makes his breath even, his face slack in practiced sleep. The pretense is a small cruelty, but a large experiment. He imagines a test like a mirror. Will kindness come empty-handed, or will it look for reward? Footsteps on marble. A soft knock at the door. The maid, Lina, enters. She is 19, perhaps 20, with hands that know how to make beds and how to hide trembling when someone laughs too close. Her cheeks carry a smudge of flour from the morning. Her eyes are quick around strangers but slow with things she owns, a faded scarf, a bent photograph tucked deep in a pocket. Lina, good evening. I finished the kitchen. The dishes are in the cabinet where you like them. She pauses when she sees Julian on the bed. Her breath catches not from surprise, but from a practiced respect for private spaces. She wears the low, obedient smile of someone taught to be invisible in the presence of wealth. She glances toward the lamp, toward the night, checking that he is truly asleep. She moves like a dance of small reparations. She straightens a cushion on the chair. She smooths the sheet at the bed's edge. Her fingers linger on the hem of the blanket, as if awaiting permission to touch further. The room is quiet except for her small tasks. Lina, good night, Mr. Chase. She takes 2 steps away, then stops. There is a tug at the back of her throat. Something that could be charity, or something deeper. A memory of her own father, who once slept in a bed that smelled like oil and old newspapers. She remembers tucking a blanket around him when he came home shivering after a night shift. The memory is a soft, persistent ache. Lina moves back toward the bed. Her hands are not owner's hands. They are caretakers. She lifts the blanket and tucks it under his chin with an instinctive gentleness. Her fingers brush the skin near his jaw. For a heartbeat, she thinks she should stop. Then she sees a pale scar at the corner of his mouth, a thin white river. She draws a breath and kisses it like an apology. Julian's eyes open a sliver. He freezes, as if sound itself could betray him. He hears the brush of her lips more fully than his conscious thought allows. Something arrests him, not the kiss, but the way she did it. Without fanfare, without the curiosity of someone who would profit. It is tender, private. It is a kindness that does not ask to be noticed. Lina pulls back, embarrassed, cheeks warming in the lamplight. She steps away and clutches the blanket to herself like a shield. Lina, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. She stumbles over her words, the wall between propriety and compassion collapsing into pleading. Julian, no. Stay? His voice is a riddle, soft as if to spare her and thick with something he has not yet named. He sits up slowly, the silk rustling. The pretense dissolves into the air like breath on glass. Lina freezes now, not from being caught, but from the sudden exposure of both their vulnerabilities. Her hands instinctively fold into herself. He looks at her for the first time not as a name on a payroll, but as a human presence he cannot fully command. Julian, I did that on purpose. Lina stiffens. A shadow passes across her face. Humiliation, perhaps, for having been tested. Lina, you what? You were pretending? Julian, I wanted to see if you would close a door on a sleeping man because it was the rule, or if you would reach out because it was the right thing. He watches her, waiting for anger. Instead, she looks away and lets out a small, hard laugh that is part apology, part defense. Lina, you should have just asked me. Julian, and if I had asked, what would you have done? Lina studies him as if reading a stranger's handwriting. The bed between them is suddenly a gulf filled with things unsaid. She gathers herself, drawing steady from the small, stubborn while she keeps for hard moments. Lina, I would have done the same things. I don't like people to hurt when I can do something, even if it's as small as tucking a blanket. She steps closer, compelled by a momentum she cannot stop. Julian holds his breath, but this time not as an experiment. He lets his face be honest. He wants to see if she will look at him on purpose. Lina, why did you do it? To test me? To laugh at me? Two. Her words fail. There is fear layered under them. Fear of being toyed with. Fear of being seen as merely a good deed. He sees that and recognizes the cruelty of his method. Julian, I don't know. Maybe I wanted to know if kindness still exists without witnesses. He lets a small smile break free, but it is unwinding with pain. Lina, kindness exists because people choose it, not because people wait for someone to fall asleep. She looks at him in a way that feels like instruction. Her voice is steady, not lecturing, but truthful in a way that gives him no place to hide. Julian studies her. The way the lamplight lays across her cheekbones, how her hands keep returning to an invisible task, smoothing the blanket, tucking her apron in, touching the chipped piano key as if testing its memory. The room is simple, she is complex. He realizes, with a cold, thrilling clarity, that he has used more than his wealth to measure her. He has used loneliness. Julian, tell me about yourself. It is a dangerous, intimate request. People in his world ask for resumes, for references, for reasons to board up a heart. He asks instead a question that opens a window. She hesitates, surprised by the invitation. Lina, there's not much to tell. I grew up in a row of houses that all leaned into each other. We kept a little garden in the back where my mother grew tomatoes so bright that strangers would stop and ask for one. My father used to mend radios. He taught me to listen to things people think they are not saying. Her voice is low and woven with the textures of where she came from. Tomato juice on her thumb, late nights warmed by the hum of a radio. Her eyes meet his and hold. There is neither deference nor defiance, only an honest account. Julian, did you always want to be a maid? Lina laughs, a small, winded sound. Lina, no. I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to teach children how to read curved letters as if they were little boats. But life taught me different lessons first. Julian, do you still read? She blinks, caught off guard by the intimacy of the memory. Lina, when I can. In the early mornings before anyone wakes up, I read the pages of old textbooks that my neighbor throws away. I read about galaxies I have only seen drawn in pencil. He sees, then, how small her world is and how vast in her mind. He is struck by her names for things: tomatoes, radios, little boats. He remembers, suddenly and painfully, that he too once had small things: a paper plane that his brother folded for him, a music box that played a song he hummed without knowing why. Julian, what song do you hum in the morning? Lina, a lullaby my grandmother hummed. She used to rock me when the storm clouds held on too long. She said songs were like anchors. He notices features on her face soften when she speaks of being anchored. The apartment, with all its marble and glass, feels suddenly like a hollow place waiting for something to hold it steady. Julian, sing it. Her surprise is immediate and sincere. She looks at him as if he has asked her to remove a piece of herself and share it. She begins, tentative at first, a few notes that climb like birds testing the wind. Then her voice steadies into the melody, simple and clear, a thread of sound that seems not to belong to this room, but to a kitchen steam and a porch in a small town. He freezes, but this time it is not shock. It is as if a lock inside him turns. Something that has been wound tight for years eases. The song is unfamiliar in words, but familiarly made. It carries the cadence of lullabies that cross oceans. When she finishes, the silence is full. Julian, I used to hear something like that. Lina, really? He nods, bewildered by the memory of his mother's hum, of a voice that used to stitch the edges of his world when his father worked late and the house felt too large for one child's heartbeat. He had closed that door on purpose long ago because it hurt to remember the small things that no longer fit his shoes or his bills. Julian, I pretended to sleep to see what you would do. I thought, maybe I wanted to catch a kindness unearned. There is a confession in the air that makes her wince, not because he tested her, but because he admitted the cruelty. Her trust has been used as a measuring tool. She steps back as if to create distance. Lina, you hurt me. It is not an accusation but a fact. He feels it as a thud against his chest, a real, physical thing. He wants to say he is sorry in the way the rich say sorry, with gestures and payments and polite words. He wants to do better, to show rather than to tell. Julian, I know. I'm sorry. Not the kind of sorry that smooths a bill or writes a check. I am sorry for looking at you as a test instead of a person. She studies him, and there is something like hunger in her gaze. Hunger for being seen, for being allowed to be messy and ordinary and whole. Lina, why are you different from how you are to them? He stares at the ceiling. He thinks of boardrooms, glass towers, reporters who shape his public pronouncements. He thinks of a life constructed by appearances and the exhausting work of maintaining them. He thinks of being taught that vulnerability is a liability. Julian, because with them, I am a role. With you, I am a curiosity I do not know how to define. The air between them is threaded with 1,000 small possibilities. Conversation, quiet, a walk through streets where neon bulbs sketch promises. He reaches a hand toward her, tentative, not to own but to invite. Julian, would you let me try again? Without the tests. Lina hesitates. Trust is not returned like a ball. It is built, sometimes in a morning, often in much longer spans. She remembers the lullaby, the blanket, the scar. She remembers being tested and choosing kindness anyway. She knows there is a line between compassion and attachment, but she also knows the way his apology trembles with sincerity. Lina, you must stop pretending you are someone you are not. Start by being honest. I can forgive a lot if a man tells the truth. He is surprised by her firmness. It is not a rejection. It is not a demand. It is a simple, human boundary. Julian, I will tell you the truth. I will try to unlearn the things I was taught to wear like armor. She allows herself a small, skeptical smile. Lina, that sounds like work. Julian, it will have to be. I am tired of pretending that work is all there is. He stands and extends his hand. She takes it, barely, the contact warm and grounding. The room holds a new shape. Lina, if you are serious, you should know one thing. I don't want to be saved. I want to be seen. Julian, then see me too. I will try to make myself worth the trouble. Their hands remain clasped like an agreement between two people from different maps of life. He is not a hero. She is not a charity case. They are two people in a room that suddenly has an honest gravity. He gestures toward the piano. Her fingers, still faintly smudged with flour, find the chipped key. He asks her to play again. This time she laughs and sits. The melody rises, delicate and persistent, and he remembers the music box he once had and misplaced. He listens, unashamed, as if the sound can stitch seams that money never could. They sit together with nothing more than conversation and music. She tells him about a tomato that grew so perfect it made a neighbor cry. He tells her a story about a paper plane his brother folded for him that flew into a puddle and never returned. He speaks with honesty about the emptiness behind glass, about dinners that taste of success and not of belonging. She listens without interruption, eyes steady, occasionally tucking a loose hair behind her ear. Time moves in increments that feel like permission. The city hums below, and the lamp keeps a steady yellow watch. Neither of them pretends. If anything, they invent a new language of small truths. The way he asks for a story about her grandmother. The way she insists he call her Lina and not Mississippi. Later, as the night grows thin, he walks her to the door. She pauses with her hand on the handle, then turns. Lina, one last thing. Promise me you will not stage another test. He shuts the distance between them, leans down, and brushes a forehead to hers. Gentle, respectful. It is the kind of contact that does not demand a return. It is a benediction, not a claim. Julian, I promise. No more tests. Only truth. She smiles in a way that carries both the caution of someone who has been wronged and the small hope of someone who believes in second chances. She steps out into the corridor, and the door clicks softly behind her. He stands in the doorway he had once used to announce deals. Now it frames a person he wants to learn how to become. He looks at the bed and the blank space it holds, at the scar on his lip where kindness had found him once, and realizes that what froze him earlier was not shock, but the recognition of how starvation for simple care tastes when it is finally fed. He moves to the window and opens it. The city breathes in and out. Taxi lights, late diners, a dog barking like a punctuation. He listens as if tuning himself to the rhythm of a neighborhood he has not known in years. He takes out his phone, then puts it away. He folds his hands in front of him and waits for morning with the patience of someone who has decided to learn how to be present. Morning comes like a modest offering. Lina returns with a cup of coffee for herself and, shyly, a smaller cup for him. She places it on the coffee table as if setting down a small offering. He accepts it, surprised by the careful warmth of it. She sits across from him on the rug, the floor cool under her knees. They share silences like they are newly learned words. He asks her about tomatoes. She asks him about the music box. They find laughter in the middle of the mundane. Later, he offers her a book, one he remembers from his childhood, edges worn, a lullaby printed inside the first page. He slides it across the table. Her hand hovers over the cover, then rests on it. Lina, thank you. For the book. For last night. Julian, thank you for not letting me be the kind of man who tests people for sport. She laughs, this time without reservation. Lina, you still owe me a proper apology to my neighbor for stepping on her garden once. He feigns offense, then grins. They both know he will mend the neighbor's flower bed if it means learning how to care for something other than numbers. Later, as seasons shift, the apartment fills with small traces of Lina, a plant on the windowsill, a stack of books by the lamp, a chipped mug that becomes his favorite. He, in turn, leaves a note on the fridge sometimes, an unpolished sonnet on a napkin, a grocery list that becomes a poem. They build a language of ordinary things. She teaches him the names of stray constellations. He teaches her to read the fine print of contracts so that she sees the way words can be both trap and map. They negotiate boundaries, break bread, mend a spilled sauce together. He learns that vulnerability is not defeat but currency in the tender economies of human exchange. One evening, years later, in ways that feel both sudden and inevitable, they find themselves in the same room where their truth began. The portrait still watches like a benevolent judge. He has stopped pretending to sleep. She has stopped apologizing for being seen. They hold a small, private peace like a teacup between them. Lina, do you ever miss the tests? Julian, no. Tests leave scars. Truth leaves room. She leans forward and touches the scar at the corner of his mouth with the gentle reverence of someone who has known how it felt to be small and still held. Lina, good. Because I never wanted to pass one for the sake of a reward. He smiles and pulls her close, not to possess, but to promise. No dramatics, no grand declarations that dissolve into night. Just two people who learn to be better by being honest. He remembers the night he pretended to sleep and feels ashamed and grateful in equal measure. It led him to see a person who would not be a prop in his life. He keeps that memory in a folder not of triumph, but of correction. They sit together, the city an indifferent constellation beyond the window. The piano plays with a single new key found. The lullaby that once anchored a little girl echoes faintly through the rooms and becomes, over time, their own private hymn. A melody they hum when the world grows loud and pretends to be too large. In the end, his test taught him nothing of her worth. Her kindness taught him everything about the small, brave acts that build a life. He does not freeze anymore when she does something. He breathes in the generosity of the world she brought into his life, and, for the first time, he returns it without calculation. They keep living in the tender no-man's land of two lives, learning to overlap, making mistakes, making amends, practicing truth. And when the late summer comes, with tomatoes ripening along the windowsill in neat, impossible rows, they sit on the balcony and laugh about a garden that once belonged to a neighbor and now belongs to both of them. He reaches for a tomato and hands it to her as if it were a jewel. She bites into it and closes her eyes, the taste of sun and storm and small kitchens filling her face with a kind of joy he did not expect to see in a maid he once tested and in a woman he now loves. Julian, you always were brighter than you thought. Lina, so were you. You just needed someone to tell you. They lean into one another like a pact. Above them, the city keeps its endless promises. They have learned to keep their own. End.